Hello everyone and welcome to Code Escuela. In this episode, we are going to take a look at how we can build a Blazor dashboard using MudBlazor components. Before we proceed, please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Let's proceed. Since we are going to use MudBlazor for this episode, let us make sure that we have installed the necessary MudBlazor project templates that we will use later when we create this project. So if you think that you have not done it yet or have not yet installed the templates, just open a command prompt and run this command. So that would be .NET new install mudblazor.templates. And since on my system I already have this project templates installed, then yeah, it would indicate that it's already installed. But in your case, if it hasn't been installed, then it should uh, install it, and then it would be made available when you create a new project. Next, for this demonstration, we will be using a SQLite version of the Northwind database. So if you are familiar with the Northwind database, it's a very popular database from Microsoft. So it usually started with Microsoft Access, and now it has been ported to a different types of databases. So one of it is uh, made of out of SQLite. So to get that sample database, just head on to github.com and search for Northwind Sqlite. And then the first result that should come up comes from jpy3 slash Northwind Sqlite 3. And here you can download or clone this repository to your machine. And lastly, we will be using a DB browser for SQLite, which is a SQLite client that lets us create and manage our SQLite database. So just head on to SQLitebrowser.org and download the specific version that is appropriate for your machine. Let's start by opening Visual Studio 2022 and create a new project. Next, if the MudBlazor template is not visible, then just search for MudBlazor and it should uh, come up with this MudBlazor web app in one of the results. Okay, and you know that it would be MudBlazor if you see this icon here that shows an M, and then that would be the correct template. Next, let's click next. Then let's name this as MudBlazor dashboard. Okay, then click next, and then just leave the framework .NET framework as .NET 9, no authentication type, and then interactive render mode would be server, interactivity location would be global, and just for me personally, I just opt to not use top level statements, so I have it checked here. Okay, let's click create, and it should create our project for us with along with the necessary MudBlazor references and libraries that it needs to start your initial project. Okay, so quickly let's just run this one as sort of a sanity check so that we know that it's uh, correctly prepared, right? So hopefully this would display our initial page, right? We have it here. So what's great about the new MudBlazor template is that it now has this option to set it as light mode or dark mode. So if you see this icon here at the top right, if you click this one, then it would switch to light mode, and then you click it back, then it would switch to dark mode. So it's already there by default, all right? And then also have our example pages here, so I just let them be added here, all right? But we won't be using them, right? So now we have uh, made sure that our initial project has been created. Next, let's add a new folder to our project. So let's right click on the MudBlazor dashboard project and then add new folder, and let's name it data. And then let's open our Northwind Sqlite folder that we just cloned or downloaded from the GitHub repo. And let's open it, and let's open the dist folder. Then let's just copy this one to that data folder that we just created in our solution. Paste it here. And then another one would be, so that was the northwind.db, the actual Northwind database. And then the other one would be this populate.py file. So this is a Python file that lets us add additional data to our Northwind database. So let's just drag it here to our data folder. And this will be the two files that we will be using later on. And before we forget, click on the northwind.db file, and then select properties, and for the copy to output directory property, just choose copy if newer. Okay, since later on we will be modifying this database, and we want to make sure that every time it changes or gets updated, then it gets copied to our bin folder whenever the application is run. Now we will start building our initial layout for the dashboard. So this is what we are going to build for our dashboard. So if you can see, we have like several parts or sections in it. So on the top part we have three. So it would display the total sales, total orders, and then the total orders shipped. So all of this would be for the current day or for today. Now in the middle you have two sections here. So the one on the left is where you have the graph or a line chart for monthly sales year to date, which means monthly sales starting from January up to the current month for the current year. And then on the right side is you have also another line chart or bar chart that shows the number of orders against the number of orders shipped. So again, this is from year to date, which means starting from January up to the current month of the year. Okay, so now in the bottom we have this left one section. We have this pie chart that shows the amount of or the total sales for each of the specific product category for the current month. Okay, and then right beside that, this middle part here is it shows a table of the top 10 products for the current month of the year. And then on the right side of it is top 10 customers for the current month. So this would be the top 10 customers by sale for the month of May in this example. Okay, so now so how do we uh, design our dashboard? Now there's a quick way to do that. So let's head on to the mudblazor.com website, and then let's navigate to docs. So there's this concept wherein MudBlazor provides you with some wireframes. So here let's navigate to the wireframes. Okay, here it will give you some set of initial layouts that you can use immediately or apply in your MudBlazor project, okay, or application. So what we will be choosing here is this dashboard grid. So if we click this one, it will give us a preview of what would that dashboard look like. Okay, so here we have again the different sections of what will be your dashboard. Okay, now how do we get a hold of this or apply with this one? So here we have this button right next to the name dashboard grid. It will show us the code, and then basically we can just copy all of this. Let's copy this one and then head back to our project. Now for the dashboard we will be using the home page. So let's open our home page, which would be under components pages folder, and then let's open home.razor. So with this one we will be clearing all of this content here. or code here. We won't be needing this. And then let's just paste the code that we just copied from the wireframe on the MudBlazor site. Okay, let's save this one and let's quickly run to see how it would look like or what it would look like. And so yeah, let's just wait for a few seconds here to get this one compiled, and it should allow us to see what that initial layout for our dashboard would look like. Okay, so now again, what's great about the default MudBlazor template is that it already gives you an option to have the switch between dark and light theme by just clicking on this top right corner button. It switch to light theme and then switch back to dark theme. Okay, so now that we have this initial dashboard layout, uh, we will now be following or start laying out what we have in our design with this one. So I will not uh, be typing each of the code that we have. So since I've already done this one, so and also so as not to bore you while I'm typing away with a lot of code. So here is the layout that I've created. Let's just copy this one and then add it here. Let's replace this default wireframe code with that one that I did. So what I did here is, let me just explain. So each of these sections would be the ones in our layout. Okay, so we have the first three top sections here wherein we show the total sales, total orders, and then total orders shipped. So I've added some additional styles here. So I've set the height to a specific height and then set the background color and then the color of the text so that it would appear like the one in this layout. Okay, and so I've also changed the page title to MudBlazor dashboard. Okay, now the other sections are just placeholders. So I've just added a simple text here that shows what would be that section. So let's try and run this one to see the result of this layout. Okay, so for now, since everything is empty and everything is just a placeholder, now this would give us an idea of what we will be building on later for each of these sections. Okay, so now we have our top row here, which displays the total sales, orders, and shipped for the current day. And then the middle one would be the line chart for the monthly sales. Okay, and then the right one would be monthly orders and order shipped, a bar chart, which would be this one on the layout. And the bottom sections, the three bottom sections would be the pie chart, and then the top 10 products and top 10 customers. All right. So if you look at the initial layout, yeah, there's nothing in there. Really, it's just text. I've used the mud text. And then for the top ones, yeah, I've added text and then some dummy values here. Again, another text. And then I just align it to the right and then set the size of the font. And then that's pretty much the initial layout. So on the next step, we will be building each one of these sections in a component-based manner. Okay, so again, it's up to you. If it's your personal preference that you can easily, just as easily, uh, add in all the code and the logic in this single homepage. But what would give you, I mean, that would give you so much uh, code to mess, and everything would get so messy since everything is placed in a single file. Okay, so with the idea of having each of the sections as each individual components, it lets you create or build those sections individually without thinking of, or I mean, without the worry that, yeah, it would clutter your home page. Okay, so now that would be for your initial design layout. So now let's take a look on how we can build our source of the data. So we will be building SQL queries that we will use for each of these sections. So let's close this one up. And so let's switch and open our SQLite DB browser, the one that we just installed previously. And so here we can open the Northwind database here. So click on Open Database, and then let's navigate to the folder or directory where that Northwind database is. So it's under our MudBlazor dashboard project and data folder, and then here we have our northwind.db, and then let's click open. So here we can inspect what are the structures of the different tables that are being used within this Northwind SQLite database. So here we have tables, and then we also have views at the bottom, okay, or list of views. So views would be like predefined queries that you can use on your database. And so here, what we will be mostly interested would be like, since most of the data would come from these orders, order details, and you have also the products, and I guess that would be the I also again this customers page, and then the categories. So for this one, I've already initially created the SQL queries that we will be using. So now we will take a look at what those queries are. So it will give us a chance to inspect and refresh ourselves of what SQL query is. So let's open that file. I already have that one. So let me just navigate to where I placed that SQL query. Okay, it should be okay. So this would be named my dashboard queries.sql. I will be adding this one on the project also, so you'll have a reference. All right, so let's go back and inspect each of those queries that we will be using for each of the different sections of the dashboard. So the first one would be, looking at the layout, is the total sales for the day along with the total orders and orders shipped. So this one would be the query that we will use. So first we have selected the sum of the order details. So that would be a sum of the unit price and the quantity multiplied by the quantity, and this will be aliased as total, the column total. It would come from the orders table, and then we have here a join, since we will be also pulling that specific data for each of the order details from the order details table, matching up with the orders.id against the order ID of the order details. Okay, now the criteria would be in this where statement, wherein we've specified it that the order date would be between a specific date and time. So in this case, if the current day would be, let's say for as of this writing, it would be like May 5, 2023. I mean May 23, sorry, May 23, 2025. So starting at midnight up until to the last minute of the day. Okay, so that would comprise the entire day, or within the 24 hours of data, of recorded data. Okay, so if we try and run this, this should give us a result. So since on my end the data is quite not updated, so let's do a quick query if what would be the latest data that we have. Since I think we have not yet updated this one, so before we forget and continue with these examples, so let's update our database since it's quite outdated. So if we try and run, let's run quickly a query here, like select asterisk from orders. Let's order it by orders dot order date. Okay, and if we run this, let's add descending, so it would be much easier to view the latest one. So if, as you can see, it's quite outdated since the order date is way back 2023. So let's update this one. So how do we do that? So let's head back to our project, and you see we have copied this populate.py file. So this is a Python file that we will be using to update our database with the latest data, or latest sample data. Okay, I'm not quite familiar with Python, but I assume that uh, this is the code that does that, or does the insertion of new data for the Northwind database. So let's just I assume this would be the date we're in, what kind of, or what date, specific date and time that we will be adding. Since this is quite updated from way back 2012, let's set it at 2025. The month would be May, and then as the time of this writing already, let's say 30. Okay, so that would give us okay, so since we will be querying the year to date ones, let's start with 1 January 2025 up to the current date. Okay, so let's save this. Though, how do we run this one? So let's open the folder where this populate.py Python file is, and then let's just open a command prompt here. So let's right shift on the keyboard, right click here, and then open in terminal, and here we can just run that populate.py file. Okay, so we do python populate.py, then press enter. Okay, unable to open. Let's see. Okay, now the directory should be just remove this one. It's wrong directory. Okay, let's try it again. See if it works. Yeah, hopefully it should work. Okay, now uh, I think that it worked. And so let's head back to dbbrowser.sqlite, and then let's just go to this tab, browse data. We can quickly see uh, the data here. So it's now 32,000 rows. So initially I think it's around 20 something thousand rows. So now let's try and go back to our SQL just to confirm if it has been updated. Let's run this quickly. Okay, so now we should be getting the most up-to-date sample data. Okay, now let's comment this out for the moment and head back to our query, wherein we will query the total sales for the day. Okay, then we will be changing the date between, from, and to. So let's just query. On my end it will be June 2 already. Change the date also here in the from 6-2, and then let's run this one. Okay, hopefully we should get the result. Now we have here at the bottom, you can see that there's a result of around 2.3 million something. Okay, so now this would be the query that we will use for uh, this section of the total sales. Okay, now for the rest of the other two sections, it would be almost just as the same. Instead, sorry, this would be the query for the total orders of the day. Again, we just need to count the orders. We don't need to do any other sort of calculation compared to the total sales here. And then we just, again, following the same filters, we should be able to query the latest number of orders. So in this case, let's just quickly change this one and run this. Let's comment this one out and then let's run quickly, and then we should be getting the result of, in this case, it's a count of 85. Okay, and then the one also at the order shipped would be again the same logic that we've been doing for the total orders, but we are filtering against the ship date column. Okay, so we should be getting the same result, but against the ship date column. All right, so some of these queries aren't that complicated. They are, some of them are just basic queries wherein we will be able to pull data necessary for our dashboard sections. So in this case, there's some things to note here. One would be when querying against monthly sales. So here we have uh, focus our attention here on the where, or the filter, wherein we've compared it against the current date. So we've used this is strf time or string. I don't know what this means specifically, but this strf time function is used here so that we can extract the year from the order date and then compare it against the current year. So that's one way of pulling out data for the current year. Okay, here we have also for the monthly orders made. So again, we just counted it as the total orders and then comparing it against the year, current year, in this case would be 2025, and then we grouped it by month also. Okay, so there's two ways here. We can just call the use the column name that indicated here as month, just like what we did here for the monthly sales. Okay, that's one way. And then we have also query monthly orders ship, but in this case we have used between comparison between a date and time. So as you can see, we have here set the I mean this shouldn't be correctly used, but you can just follow what we did here for between dates and times, to and from dates. Okay, so I will add this SQL query file so that you can have a chance to review this one and get your SQL knowledge up to date or refreshed. So hopefully this would be able to help you out. So now let us continue with our database. I mean our dashboard. So let's close some of these windows here. And now we will be starting to create our services that will become the data source for our dashboard elements. Okay, so before we continue, let's add the necessary dependencies or packages that we need for this one. So click on the dependencies here, and then on the packages, right click on this one, and then select manage NuGet packages. And from here we will be installing a library that we will use uh, for this one. So in this case, since we will be using SQLite and EF Core, so we'll just search for EF Core SQLite, and then if you see in one of the results, it should come up with this one. We have here named Microsoft.entity framework core.sqlite.core. So this will be the one that sorry, the one on the bottom on it of it. Okay, this one. So this will be the one that we will be using, the library that we will use. So let's just use the latest stable version, would be 9.0.5, and then just click on install, and then click apply. I accept. Then hopefully it should install all of the necessary uh, dependencies along that goes along with it. Okay, so now that we have that one installed, let's close this one for a minute. So what we will do next is we will create a simple service that will become the entry point for our queries. Okay, so instead of following a specific pattern like doing a repository pattern, we will not be doing that, since that would just take quite some time to build that one up. So for the sake of this example and demonstration, let's just do a simple service in this case. So here I've already added a folder, and inside of it I have added two files. So the first one would be just DTOs. Okay, so I've named it dtos.cs, and inside of it would be the classes that we will use for querying our data. So this will become more relevant as we proceed with building out our service. So the next one would be this report service file. So this is a class that will hold all of the queries that will be needed for each of our individual dashboard components. Okay, so now what I've done here is that I've added each of the individual methods that will be used to generate the data for each of these sections. Okay, so let's examine each of these methods. So first off, we have get total sales of the day, which means that data would be coming from here that would show the total sales for the day for this uh, section. And again, for the remaining two uh, sections on this top part, total orders and total orders shipped. Now, how do we make it dynamic that we can pass in parameters to our SQL query? So before we forget though, is that what we also added is Northwind context file, okay, or class. That is necessary so that we can get access or connect our SQLite database to our EF Core uh, library, okay? Since we are just using EF Core as a bridge to get access to our SQLite database. So what does that file look like? So here I've added a new class here under the data folder. It's named Northwind Context. And in this class, we have inherited from DB Context. So DB Context is the parent class that we use or inherit from, so that we can configure our connection to our SQLite database. So initially we have here in the constructor, since we've placed our Northwind DB just local to this project under the data folder, so we've specified the path for the DB, which would fall under data slash northwind.db, and then we will use that one during the on configuring method as a data source, so that we can get access to our or connect to our SQLite database. That's the only thing that we need. And then from here on, this Northwind context will be used for each of the call within each of the methods here in our report service. All right. So now what I did here is uh, passed in the parameters needed for each of the queries. So in this case, for the get total sales of the day, I've initialized a variable here for the date start and date end, and then pass that as a parameter to this SQL query. So here we have used the SQL query method to directly query our SQLite database, okay? And then returning the results for each of the queries that we execute. Okay, now again, for the rest of the other methods, it should be straightforward. So for this one, total orders of the day, we are just again passing the same parameters, date start and date end. So all of these queries came from the initial query that we have prepared initially, okay, with just some slight adjustments in passing in the parameters needed. So yeah, if you have observed, I have added uh, between these methods prior to returning the result, I've added this line to each of the methods. This is placed here just to like simulate long running queries, just in case, so that we can see that each of the individual components are being queried individually. All right, so yeah, you can just inspect each of these methods and it should be quite straightforward to follow through. All right, now we have set up our report service. Next would be, it should be much easier now to uh, create our individual dashboard components. So now let us build the individual components for our dashboard. And so I've already prepared those components for this one. And so, but you can just as easily do that on your own. So first I added this dashboard folder, and from here you can just right click on the dashboard folder, select add, and then select razor component, and then name the component that you want added, and then just click add. Okay, so now let us focus on how we've built up, or I've built up this dashboard components. So let's focus first on this total sales that razor. Let's open this one up and let's inspect uh, the code that I've did. So for this one, uh, I have added the initialization code on the onInitialized async method or lifecycle, since we are going to be using the methods here that are asynchronous. All right, so first I've initialized and instantiated a report service here, and then have this is loaded boolean variable to set as false, which means that this is being used here in our template. So in our template, it's basically just this one. So if uh, data is not yet loaded, which means it if is loaded is uh, true, then we just show the data. All right, this would be stored in this total sales variable, or else then we just show the uh, MudBlazor MudProgressLinear, I mean MudProgressControl. All right, so here is the actual call that we used. So from our report service, so we just call the get total sales of the day, and then return that value and set it to our total sales variable, and then that will be displayed on our template here. Okay, so basically if data is not yet loaded, then we'll just show this progress bar, and if it is loaded, then, or completely loaded, then we just show the total sales or the value from that method call. So it's basically the same structure that I've followed for each of the individual components. Looking at this total order shipped, it's just the same also. Total orders, top 10 products, top 10 customers. With this top 10 customers and products, I've used a simple MudSimpleTable component to display the tables of customers or and products. And then for the product category sales, this would be the pie chart that will be shown. And for the rest, the loading component that I've used is the circular one, wherein the round progress circle, all right, or the loading uh, graphic, same as for the rest of the other uh, component. This one would be uh, the line chart for the monthly sales year to date. So I've used here the MudChart with the specific type of line, and again with the orders and orders shipped, it's again basically the same MudChart, but with a different type of, which is of type bar. Okay, and then there are some things that you can uh, control or configure specifically for each of these line charts or chart controls. So it depends on your uh, requirements. All right. So now, uh, after you've done each of the individual components, what you can do next is tie them up together or compose them in our home page. So now, what you can do is just remove each of these placeholders here. Okay, so let's remove each one of them, and then we can just easily use the individual components that we've created. So for the case of total sales, can just use that. Okay, you can fully use the fully qualified name, or you can just remove that and then just add the using statement to pull the namespace. Then it should be uh, easy following the rest of the other components. All right, so let's say the total orders. All right, and then total orders shipped. Okay, what's the next one? Monthly sales. Monthly sales year to date. Monthly orders and orders shipped year to date. What else? The pie chart. So we have product category sales, and then we have top 10 products, I think. Yes, top 10 products, and then top 10 customers. So now, as you can see, it's much more cleaner if you think of uh, structuring your Blazor apps as components. All right, you start to think that everything must be a component, so that it's much more easier to deal with isolated components than having everything smashed into a single razor page. Okay, so in this case, you can just quickly easily navigate to each of the individual components. In this case, if you want to take a look at the total sales component, then you can just point your cursor here, press F12, and then it will take you to the file for that component. All right, so now let's run this one and see how it would look like. So let's hope this works, and we'll see what would be the final result. Okay, hopefully nothing, uh no errors would come up. Okay, now we have our dashboard, so we can just, let's see, uh make this full screen. All right, so as you can see, each of the individual components had that uh loading graphic that is being displayed while each of the components are being displayed. So if we just went full screen, it would be much better to view. Right, see, if we try refreshing this page, let's refresh. Okay, it's loading. It takes a while since I've added the delay for each of the method calls. All right, so that, but again, as you can see, each of the different sections should just work. All right, you might have also noticed that it takes a while for for the entire page to load, since yeah, it has this pre-render configuration by default. And so yeah, it has a tendency that would execute the initialization code would just execute twice. Okay, and you might also notice that it has that split-second flicker before the entire page is being loaded. And so that would be a known issue as for the moment. Okay. So in this case, yeah, that's something to uh, just take note of. So if you are curious as to why that flicker happens, yeah, it's because it's part of the pre-rendering process. Okay. And so what you can do to prevent that, or like, yeah, is you can disable pre-rendering. All right. But the problem is that uh, there's no easy way to disable pre-rendering for each of the individual components. If you want to, it's because of currently the if it has a parent configuration, I mean the parent component by default would be pre-rendered. And so if you specify uh, pre-rendering as disabled on the child components, it won't be uh, processed or honored, or it will be ignored. So this is some known issue for the moment. Hopefully it gets fixed soon. But there's one way that you can uh, I mean, one way of fixing this one, or sort of a workaround, is that you can wrap uh, your code inside this on initialized async within, or by using the render info that is interactive property. So what does that mean? Okay, let's just start this for a bit here. And so I will show you what it meant by wrapping the your code in render mode. I mean render info is interactive. Okay, right. So now if we look at each of these uh, component, now this is what I meant by wrapping your code in render info that is interactive property. So this is interactive property allows you to determine if the component is running in pre-rendered mode or in interactive mode. All right, so we are only concerned with in interactive mode. All right, so this run would only be run, or this section of code would only be run if it's on already in interactive mode. All right, not in pre-rendering. So now I've wrapped each of these components code with this render info that is interactive condition. And so if we try running this one, we should be able to prevent the flickering of the page on the initial load, and it should be much faster when the page loads initially. Okay, as you can see, there's no flicker, everything is loaded immediately, but each of the components are being uh, processed, queried with their data, with their specific or whatever delay that they have as a simulation of long-running queries. And so yeah, it's much more better experience for the user. So if we try refreshing this one in full screen mode, it should look much better. So you see, it's much faster, and each of the individual components are being loaded separately, okay, depending on how long it takes for the queries to complete for whatever part of the element they are being called. All right, so now you have completed our dashboard. You have your total sales and orders shipped at the top, and then your line chart for the monthly sales, your bar chart for the monthly orders and orders shipped, and then at the bottom you have your pie chart for the total sales by product category. So looking at this one, beverages would be composed much of this category, or has the most sales. And then you have your tables for the top 10 products and the top 10 customers. So yeah, I think that wraps up our episode for this one. It we were able to use the MudBlazor components for creating a dashboard, and I hope that this one would be useful enough for you to be able to use in your projects. And so yeah, before we go, please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel so you'd get updated with our latest videos, and I'll be adding all the resources in the description, and including a link to the code in our GitHub page, all right, in our GitHub repo. So I guess, yeah, that's it for this one, and I hope you have a good and wonderful day. Thank you, everyone, and see you in our next episode.